Hey folks, how's it going? Welcome to yet another live stream. This time I don't even have anything I want to do on this live stream except for like wrapping up a couple of topics that have been crossing my mind lately. Haven't been doing many streams these days, and I've got quite the backlog of keyboards to be built. I've prepared tons of switches, but somehow I don't know what to build. So instead of just not doing any streams, I decided to address a couple of topics that I would otherwise address in some of my build streams that are probably gonna just stay there and remain unnoticed. I'm also aware that this is probably one of my one of the videos that isn't gonna catch many views. But I figured that some of my some of the people that are interested in things beyond my build streams might be interested in some of the stuff. So yeah, I was thinking about doing a stream not about builds but just about stuff that crosses my mind, and especially some of the things I like to address regarding general things that are going on in this community, in communities in general, and then some contemporary topics, like a couple of things that are happening lately. Just getting some things off my mind. First of all, maybe nice little entry point here is I've been getting some feedback on my builds. And there's this one of the biggest controversies about my builds is usually my stabilizer modding. People, there seems to be like a very big following of the let's say I would consider it a heavy stabilizer modding, which kind of means that you add a lot of thick grease-like lube into the stabilizers to completely eliminate any rattle between the wire and the stabilizer slider. I've got this. I've built this a little while ago when I had a discussion with a friend, and I wanted to demonstrate something, so I cut up a little stabilizer casing. So this is basically just some PCB I found. Oh. Let me try something. Yeah, let me just cut this down a little bit. Make sure that I'm a bit more flexible with it. I don't need the whole PCB for the stuff that I want to do. Okay, there we go. Okay. These are the kind of things that I should have done before starting the video, but okay, there we go. So this PCB is basically not much else than a switch and a stabilizer, and I've cut open. Pong. Sorry for that. I've cut open the stabilizer housings on the side to illustrate something, and that I've basically to investigate something that I've been suspecting. To address one of the first things about stabilizer modding, a lot of people it's established that pretty much everyone clips their stabilizers. Clipping stabilizers is pretty much a no-brainer as soon as you get into the proper high-end builds. At least if you're working with cherry stabilizers, They are my go-to brand. They aren't only like pretty much anything I would expect from a stabilizer, but they're also cheap and available. Yeah, and so people clip stabilizers, and clipping the stabilizers, let's have a look at a stabilizer here. So clipping stabilizers means cutting off parts of the stabilizers. Most notably, let's try this. Yeah, there we go. You cut off this section down here and this section down here. And you usually do like quite a generous cut. Let's just cut these, I don't mind. So see if I can get a bit more light here. Let's see. So like this is the way I usually cut. So cut this part straight off. See if you can get this on camera. Cut this part straight off, and you cut this part straight off. So that's what we're left with now. And what this does is, like, if you closely look at a standard cherry stabilizer slider, you are actually taking off about maybe 0.3 or 0.25 millimeters of stabilizer. And this is actually the part that is making contact or touching your PCB when you bottom out the stabilizer. It is the part that doesn't only contact your PCB, it's the part that it has like a little extending leg down there that is gonna make contact before that, and dampen your downstroke. And the part that's dampening your downstroke is a bit undesirable because we don't have any dampening on any of the other switches, and we want to get a consistent feeling. So having the stabilized keys dampened through the stabilizers is not a good idea. So by cutting off these, let's say 0.3 millimeter of stabilizer, we are removing the little bit of stabilizer that is usually touching the PCB. That was my impression. And there's a very strong school of thought that still suggests, after clipping the stabilizers, that you should then go ahead and do the so-called Band-Aid mod. And the Band-Aid mod, what it does means, the point where you let's use this. Let's say this is where your stabilizers go. This is the stabilizer, and the part right here where your slider goes, the part where the slider is potentially touching the PCB, you put a little piece of Band-Aid down there and stick it on the PCB so that you can dampen the downstroke of the stabilizer. So this is something people wonder why I don't do this in my build jobs. And I've been wondering myself, because somehow this never occurred to be something that I wanted to care of. And when there are things that I don't consider a problem, I'm not looking for a fix, because if I have something working well for me, I wouldn't want to do a fix, because that is just potentially creating another problem. So yeah, this is something I've never bothered with, but I was still curious if there is actually any benefit to performing such a Band-Aid mod for my purpose, like for my desired key feeling. Yeah, and in order to see how effective it is, I cut open a pair of stabilizers on the side and see how heavy the actual impact of the stabilizer sliders on the PCB are. And we can see here, these are a pair of you can see here, this is a normal unclipped cherry stabilizer. Let me try this. I've got a little flashlight here. Oh yeah, this works well. And you can see. Okay, let me try something. Okay, let's try this. Yeah, this works well. Okay. Yeah, you can see this is the part that touches the PCB. You can see one B. Oh, it's not been clipped in correctly. Oh, this is much better. Okay, yeah. Now you can see a bit more obvious. Kind of hard to get on camera. Let's try this again like this. Oh yeah, this is quite well. You can see that this is actually a part that touches the PCB. On the other side, I have a clipped stabilizer slider. You can see here. And I realized that it doesn't touch the PCB. The slider, if you just push it down normally, it doesn't touch the PCB. There is no contact between a stabilizer, between a clip stabilizer and the PCB. It is going to stop before it hits the PCB unless you slam it. See, this is normally pressing it down. There's the little gap, and now I'm pushing it. And now I'm closing the gap, you see? When I press on the center, it even with high pressure, you can see my thumb getting white due to the pressure I'm applying. It doesn't touch. Only on off-center presses, normal pressure, high pressure. But normal key presses do not make slider contact with the PCB if you have clipped your sliders. So this is why I never bothered with the Band-Aid mod. It's a different thing if you don't clip your stabilizers, and it's an entirely different thing if you're using these old cherry stabilizer sliders. These are old cherry stabilizer sliders found in 80s keyboards, and they appear to be like a... I've always wanted to do a build with them until I realized the trouble or the problem that comes with them. They appear to be like some kind of pre-clipped cherry stabilizers, and I thought like, wow, why haven't I tried these before? And look so awesome. They are, unlike some very, very early cherry stabilizers, there's some very early G80 stabilizers that I used on some Commodore keyboards, for example, that are pretty, that are like totally differently shaped. Let me try. It's leaking. Ah, never mind. So yeah, there's like a very old version that is different. So these stabilizers actually make a full contact. Oh, let me put a keycap on, otherwise it's just not making any sense. Yeah, see? This one hitting the PCB hard. This one, clip modern stab, not hitting the PCB. See? It's I can move around there. Yeah, okay, yeah, I think I made my point. I am not using the Band-Aid mod because I never felt like there's something that needs to be fixed there. I did some investigation, cutting open a slider housing, and realized that I don't think for my purpose it makes sense to do this mod. Okay, which brings me to the next point. One of the fundamental issues in this community, I don't want to get too dramatic. One of the let's say very central questions and beliefs in this community are the question: what switch to use, what mod to use, what weight to use, how to build, what stabilizers to use. All these questions about... I'm just putting this on the table to have something on video while we talk. There's a little something I want to talk about in a bit. So I've come to the conclusion with all the boards I've built so far, and with my personal journey that I've made, going through tons of different switches and ending up with the switches that I prefer these days. If you are new to the hobby and you are looking for an easy answer to the question, what is the best switch, then I highly recommend to find a cheap way to try out some switches and make up your own mind. Like, this is something like you wouldn't go online on YouTube and look for a video telling you what's the best pair of shoes to wear. Like, I wouldn't do that. And switches are kind of like, maybe it's a decent comparison to compare them to shoes, for example, because there are so many different shoes and it is something that you wear a lot, yet there are so many different people wearing entirely different shoes, and you can pay a lot of money for shoes and you can get super cheap shoes, and people are going to be happy with both kinds and all kinds of different shoes. Some people, like, it also heavily depends on your physics. Like, if you're a heavy dude, if you're a light dude, if you've got small feet, if you've got wide feet, if you got whatever kind of different feet and walking style and posture, your body weight, your daily routines. Do you walk a lot? Do you sit around a lot? Do you have, like, all these kind of different things play into the selection of your shoes. And it's the same thing with keyboard switches. Like, some people, we've all got different hands. Like, look at the different kinds of hands you have. People have, like, smaller hands, shorter fingers, thicker fingers, large hands. It's all over the place. Some people can't get heavy enough springs. I personally can't get light enough springs. Some people prefer something right in the middle. They ask for old vintage black springs because they think it's a great weight. They're like around about 60 grams of actuation weight. Yeah, actuation weight. And you can find, like, if you look at some vets who've been through a lot of different keyboards and really know their thing, you will find them being into all different kinds of springs and switches and moddings and things. So that pretty much tells me that it is a highly personal thing. Even if you've been through a lot, it's not like all the pros and all the experienced people end up with the same preference. They all end up with a different preference, and they've all gone through tons of different steps of figuring out what they personally prefer. And this is basically what I want to bring across, that you shouldn't be looking for an easy answer to the question, what is the perfect switch or what is the best switch. Especially, you shouldn't be looking at top lists of best switches, like, without any context. It is always a personal preference, and it's it's not an easy journey. Like, of course you can just get MX Browns or like any other tactile, light, generic rubber dome convert switch and get something that might feel a lot like the switches that you've been using for years, and is going to give you an easy transmission? No. Well, an easy transfer over into the mechanical world. But then again, you're going to get a lot of MX Brown hate. And you're also missing out because you're you're not going on the journey, and the journey is actually what's most fun. Yeah, I really recommend try out as many different switches as you can. Go to a couple of meetups. Try to really spend time with the keyboard, like walking past the keyboard, going like this. Oh, these are the best switches ever. I'm gonna build a $600 kit with it. Nah, I wouldn't do that. Try to get a writing posture. Try to write something fast, like you see in all these writing, typing tests and something like that. You're typing, the way you touch the switches, the way you actuate the switches is so much different when you really type on them. Like the most pathetic thing I've seen is people putting a switch between their fingers and then giving their opinion. That is like, okay, let's just, maybe some people can do that. But I would never ever judge a switch after having it between my fingers. There is so many things that you're not considering or that you are not picking up when you do that. A switch is so much different when it's mounted in a given keyboard, and that is another important lesson that I learned about switches. Is switches are heavily influenced by the keyboard they are put in. There are certain switches that are going to feel horrible in a given keyboard, but they could be a true revelation in a different keyboard. Just checking the chat. Thanks very much. Yeah, transition was the word I was looking for. Perfect. Someone can read my mind. Having a switch between your fingers is totally not going to give you any impression of what it's going to feel like on a given keyboard, with a given set of keycaps, with the specific plate material. These are all the different factors that are so exciting to factor in when building a keyboard, when picking a keyboard. Look at the kits that people spend hundreds of dollars into, that are really deep in the hobby. Look at all the options you have there. These options are there for a reason, and like people get obsessed with this kind of stuff, and it's for a reason. I mean, it's not healthy, and you don't have to go this deep into the hobby to enjoy keyboards and switches. But if you are looking for an answer and you want to go beyond the Linus Tech Tips review of keyboards and switches, don't be looking for an easy answer. Don't be looking for the top switch of the month, the top switch of the year, the most upvoted switch of the entirety. Get a broader perspective. Try out different switches. Try out switches in a given in a keyboard, in a kit that you like. It's gonna completely ruin you financially and personally, and but it's probably worth it, because the journey is fun. You're gonna find out a lot about things you never wanted to. But yeah, there are so many things that factor into these switches. I know people that argue about using 57 or 52 gram bottom out springs in the identical keyboard. Some people prefer 57, other people would die for a couple more 52 gram springs, and this is just the point where it comes to, and this is already leaving out all other attributes of switches. And while we're talking about switches, I want to mention, or like I want to address one thing. My personal preference is about as useless as a reference as it gets. Like no one should be talking better or worse about light linear switches, about Nixies, or about any of the other things I kind of indirectly hype in my videos. Don't misinterpret my the sounds that I make when I type on a keyboard. This is just my personal preference, and I'm like, if you want to know about personal preference, just go to any porn site, click the top hits and like the most viewed videos, and you're gonna find out that some people have different personal preferences than you have, and you might not, like, some aren't for you, and it's good that way. So yeah, it's about the same with my personal preference. Picking a linear switch is probably not the first idea people get when they get into mechanical keyboards. Getting into mechanical keyboards, usually either people get super excited about clicky switches, because clicky is something that many people associate with mechanical, because mechanical kind of, the term itself kind of implies that something happens in the switch and you want to hear the switch, like hearing a relay click in your signal lights. So you want to have something audibly mechanical happen in your switches, and you go for mechanical, because that's what these rubber domes can't do. So this is one direction people you often head for. They go in head first, and they go for the clickies because it is different. It is exciting, and there's some decent, like some really decent mechanical switches. What always put me off was that there are no, let's say, inherently clicky discrete switches. The only inherently clicky switches, and by inherently I mean switches that must click in order to mechanically actuate, like they cannot, the click is part of their essential functionality, are pretty much the good old IBM switches, the good old I'd say the beam springs, the buckling springs, the Model F, Model M, of course. These are switches that are inherently clicky, and I love these as clicky switches because they click very naturally. They click with actuation. The actuation and the click is one thing. With discrete switches, and by discrete switches I mean all switches that you can hold in your hand. Like this is a discrete switch. Everything's in this. It's just got two contacts or something like that. You can build a kit with a discrete switch. You can't build a kit with a Model M switch. Discrete switches usually, like pretty much, like they always have an artificial click built into their mechanism. These switches are, like all the ones that I can think of, are inherently linear. They make a motion that is like this. This is the motion. I'm sorry. I've got the mind of a 14-year-old. Like this is the motion. They make a linear motion, like this. And then people came up with different genius ideas to add a click to that because of the high demand for clicks in switches and mechanical switches. So people have been asking for clicks, and they got clicks. And there's two kinds of clicks that were added to discrete switches. The first kind is the MX Blue kind, where you add the clicking to the actuation mechanism of a linear switch. And while on the one hand this is not a superior click, it is getting very bad, like it's getting a bad reputation. I don't think it's as bad, but it's not a great solution. But at least it's an honest click, because it clicks with the actuation. So the actuation and the click are one and the same thing. And this is pretty much what I would consider if I had to pick a clicky like cherry-like switch, or a clicky discrete switch like Alps or Cherry, basically. And then there's the other kind, and the other kind's been getting hyped lately a lot. But there's something about these like the Box Navy switches or the Alps clicky switches that I personally just can't wrap my head around, and it's the fact that the click is generated with an extra component, an extra additional component that is completely dislocated, like this. Is completely separated from the actual actuation. So you have your actuation, and the actuation is pretty much just the normal linear actuation that you have from the switch, and then you add something to the switch that is going to create a click. And you try your best to factory tune it so the click will kind of happen about the same time as the actuation. And since the click is usually also giving you quite a steep break in the first force curve, it's usually very difficult to artificially separate click and actuation. But technically it's possible, of course, and especially with some of the later clicky concepts, it is not uncommon for click and actuation to be split up a little bit. And this is just something I personally can't be comfortable with. It kind of feels like I don't know if you're old enough, but this may also be a German thing, but Audi, the car brand Audi, they came up with a nice high-powered diesel engine. It was a 6-cylinder diesel engine, 313 horsepower. It was maybe 7 years ago. The A6 came out with a high-power 6-cylinder diesel engine, and to make this diesel more appealing, they added some kind of special speakers into the in the bottom of the car, below the car. They added some speakers that are going to output V6 petrol engine sounds, because they wanted their high power sporting diesel engine to sound like a petrol engine. And I was just like, this has got to be the most pathetic thing that I've ever heard of. Like, how pathetic do you have to be to get some speakers into your car that make your car go vroom vroom vroom? Yeah, and that's what switches, like clicky switches with a disjunct clicky mechanism, feel like to me. And I think the A6 diesel with the speaker system, it actually did sell. It was actually sold by Audi. Like, I'm not making this shit up. Maybe they still do it. If they sell any diesel engines at all anymore. So yeah. And then there's the tactile switches. Of course, tactile switches are, of course, something that we're all very used to, due to the very present rubber domes in our lives. So tactility is a nice thing too, and it's got there's certain build styles, materials, and build concepts in which they do a great job. And like, for me personally, I love PCB mounted MX Clears. I can't stand MX. Like I wanted to like MX Clears. And I put them into like a Poker 3 into a Poker 3 like kit with a stiff metal plate. I think it was an aluminum plate, and then like this tray mount in a heavy case, and they felt terrible. Much too heavy and kind of unpleasant to type on. And just a while ago, about 1.5 years ago, I got a couple of Waytech keyboards, and I just typed on them for the heck of it. It's one of the keyboards that GMK actually made, and I just wanted to say, like, I have to be typing on this keyboard. I want to know what it feels like, and it's got stock MX Clears, and it has a very it's got a manly PCB. Let's put it that way. Yeah, I don't think I've got the PCB lying around here. And it's got PCB mounted MX Clears, and I was actually super surprised how amazing it felt to type on them. I was typing completely differently from my normal typing habit. Like usually, these are reasonably heavy, but these are like a couple of MX Reds. MX Reds are even too heavy for my linear typing style. Like typing on a heavy, thick brass or steel plated custom kit with light linears. I smash the individual keys down. I like having a very strong feedback from a harsh and rough bottom out. And with the MX Clears PCB mount, I was doing what they were actually advertising, which means that I wasn't bottoming out, but I was still getting comfortable actuations. And it seems like the combination of the weight, the strong tactility, and the like non-measurable but kind of existing forgiveness of the PCB or flexibility of the PCB kind of added up together to something that I did end up enjoying. Unlike the same switches in a slightly different mounting, like add a plate to that same keyboard even an aluminium plate in the same keyboard would have probably given me a different typing experience where I wouldn't have enjoyed the switches nearly as much. So next thing I did, I had some kind of 96 layout keyboard lying around, and it was a tray mount. I was like, I don't want to build any more tray mounts and all crap. And I thought, wow, it's a tray mount, so that's a nice chance to build a PCB mounted MX Clear board. So I took some stock MX Clears and put them in, threw away I didn't throw it away, but put it aside the aluminium plate for the tray mount, and build a full 96 layout PCB tray mount. Yeah, it was awesome. I really enjoyed typing on it. It was great. Yeah, that's that. More stuff about, another thing about, the thing about, people also kind of act like I'm doing something wrong, like I'm all the way justifying myself here. I don't need to justify myself. Obviously I kind of do. Adding this is the dielectric grease that is very popular to be put into stabilizer sliders. So what people will do is they are going to put grease into that hole in the stabilizer slider. I think down here, and then even add maybe some more to the slider. There's a very good YouTube video explaining that, and this is going to reduce any kind of noise that you might get from the wire rattling inside the slider. I understand the appeal of it. I've never been bothered by any sound. I've never noticed this as something unpleasant, and since it's a non-issue for me personally, I rather not fix it, especially when it means that I am putting a considerable amount of some kind of chemical grease into my keyboard, and I'm uncertain what this stuff is going to feel like in 10 years or 15 years. So I'm a bit of a cautious guy on that front, and yeah, like if you are concerned with that, if you think like this is something I can totally understand, like I can see that there is a rattle happening, but I have never experienced the urge to mod my stabilized keys to a degree that they feel exactly like the rest of my keyboard. I'm fine that my stabilized keys are going to be a bit different from the rest of my keyboard. Otherwise, I should be doing stuff like adding a slightly different spring to my spacebar to account for the weight of the spacebar and similar stuff. And I've never bothered with that. I'm just not. It just hasn't crossed my mind yet. Another thing, after my last video where I've shorted a PCB trace with one of my screw-in stabilizers, I've gotten a ton of insulating washers. I think it was Nathan Kim who suggested getting some of these, and yeah, after a long search, I found an AliExpress or eBay seller who sell these. These are apparently 5,200 pieces. So for all my upcoming builds, I will be using these, and I think I will be using these for all screws and not be taking any more risks. They fit quite nicely on the screws. Oh, let me try. Yeah. So that's pretty neat. It's what I was hoping for. And yeah, I really suggest, I can only suggest to everyone, if you work with screw-in stabilizers, get some insulating washers. If you're curious what happened, you can rewatch my last video. Even if you pay attention to the pads on the PCB, the screws of the screw-in stabilizers can still create shorts that you wouldn't expect. Like I wasn't expecting this to happen. I didn't short any obvious pads or anything, but instead the screws kind of scratched open, just barely scratched the silk screen, and created the short and gave me a ton of a headache. Like I spent like 2 hours on a small kit. And last but not least, this kit, I've built this kit quite a while ago. I think when I built this kit, I actually put some other caps on it. And then I went like, oh man, I want to put some XDA caps on it because, oh yeah, they were both done by Jay Chan. The M65. This is the M65 Chrama. It's the good old Chrama kit. And I think I built it with the Cherilios, cherries with Zelio revision whatever stems. Wow! One thing, the mirror finish on that brass plate, it's really appealing. So yeah, I think I got pretty upset about these XDA keycaps international kits being crap because they were missing a whole, like there was the kit. The kit was like, yeah, these are the first row, second row, third row, fourth. So all the different keys in the kit, and the last line of switches, the last line of keycaps from the kit picture just wasn't made. Like the last line was missing, and I messaged Jay Chan about it and complained. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna take care of it. This was the time where he said that a lot and didn't. But I was like, oh well, okay, I guess I'll just write it off. And then just a few weeks ago, out of the blue, I got an email from him asking me to confirm my address because he was gonna send out the replacement caps, and I was like, damn bro, you're really cleaning up your backlog. And yeah, here they are. He sent me a set. I was like, looks good. I'm actually going to put it on the M65. And then I sent him an email, told him, hey, thanks for the kit, but I hate to tell you that I ordered 3. I would be really happy if you had 2 more of these fix kits for me. And he told me, sure thing, and sent me 2 more. And they already arrived, so I'm not yeah, it's pretty neat stuff. It doesn't really improve the look of this keyboard a lot, but I'm gonna put them on just because I can. Yeah, so these 3 caps, yeah, never. Oh no, yeah, that was my fault. It's actually a perfectly good German kit. Here, there we go, comma and semicolon. Yeah. Yeah, that is one of the few things that never really wrapped up. So the only thing, like the only keyboard commitment that kind of failed me is the Imsto group buy now. Imsto was doing a group buy, I think in 2015 for nice dice up caps. Never delivered. Yeah, I'm still waiting. It's never too late. So J-Chan seems to be back in the game. This M65 is a proof of that. You can even see the camera through the keycaps with this mirror plate finish. Don't get me started. Okay, what else? Some contemporary stuff. Like contemporary? Can you say that? Oh, some stuff that's been going on lately. LZ CLSN has gone live, and I think nobody noticed it. It's a strictly limited edition, 20 keyboards, and I fortunately, hopefully got in very early. I got in before the Geek Hack email notification went around, so I'm hoping I got good chances to get a complete CLS collection, like with all the CLS kits. That would be pretty neat. And CLS, the Livestream Masterpiece is going to be going live in a while. And today, one of the biggest things ever happened. The TGR Jane V2 group buy went live, and it lasted, I think, 40 seconds. Some people might say that's a good performance, and I'm probably gonna agree. But yeah, for a keyboard group buy, that is pretty short. What else do we have? Anything else? I'm gonna check the chat now. Gonna wait a moment. And, I don't even have a beer. I got some more driving going on a bit later, so no beers for me. Yeah, anything on chat I might be responding to. Otherwise, yeah, what should I build next? I thought I was about building the TGR 910 today, to celebrate the Jane V2 group buy. I didn't participate, and I didn't try to. I'm currently on a budget. I'm getting a second hobby started. A second hobby. That's a good point. No, I'm getting into some other stuff currently, which kind of keeps me away from building keyboards. Hopefully, we're going to be back at building more keyboards soon. That's TM. Been saying that for a while now, but yeah, I'm gonna be definitely going to be buying less stuff. Yeah, oh yeah, the Livestream CLS MS, I think, which is the 65%. I think the CLS M was the 75%. The CLS S was the happy hacking and 60% version, and the MS is the 65% version, which is this one, only in Korean. It's going to be shipping soon, I think. I'm going to be away for the second half of this month, and I hope it doesn't hit my customs office during that time, because that would be very unfortunate, because I have to find a way to pick this up in case this arrives while I'm gone. Yeah, otherwise, let's not make this much longer than it has to be. It's already... I'm such a chattermouth. Yeah. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. I hope it was mildly interesting to those who've been watching, and yeah, I might be doing more of these general rambling and talking videos in the future if it's appreciated. If you have topics or things you would like to have addressed in these kind of videos, or things that you would like to have talked about, let me know. And last but not least, I want to make a shout out to a dude. I have come across a couple of his videos lately. This Walker dude, Walker. Yeah, I think I exchanged a couple of PMs with him, and he has done some awesome videos. I was really impressed. It was really impressing research like stuff. He was putting a lot of thought into it. He was putting a lot of things to the test, and it was top grade stuff. I would love to do more of this, like similar stuff myself, but I really don't have the time. I can only imagine how much time it took him. He's also not been as lazy as I have and done the live streaming thing. He's really cut the videos, uploaded the videos, shot the videos and stuff, and he's done a great job. He's done some proper keyboard benchtop science, and I love it. Very solid stuff. It's very helpful. I really love it when people question stuff, when people question statements, always question statements. I do have some, I'm a bit too skeptical when it comes to certain things. Like I'm having issues agreeing or accepting other people's opinions. That sometimes it's not generally a good thing, but it's a nice driving force, and it gets you into a couple of interesting situations. So yeah, it kind of brings us back to what I was talking about when I was talking about these switches things. Don't try to look for other people's opinions. It's not going to help you here, because the whole switches and build and the thing. If you've come to a point where you're looking at these videos, you can't rely on anyone else's opinion. Like you're not looking for the best transitional keyboard when you want to trash your rubber domes for a nice office full size. It's all this kind of stuff here is good for inspiration, but try out your own stuff. Question everything that you hear from people. Question all this stuff you hear from me. Always consider that it's a highly subjective topic, and always consider that one other thing, maybe it's good that it's this late in the video, because I know a lot of people won't agree, and this is also probably going to be a controversial topic, but you should also question people's motives when they praise or talk about certain things. There is quite a bit of commercialization happening in this whole hobby, all kinds. There's pretty much hardly any keycap group buy run these days anymore. All the group buys are vendor run. It's all commercialized on the one hand. On the other hand, we're seeing more keycap group buys than ever before. It's all got its ups and downs, but with the commercialization, and especially with people who do this kind of entertainment stuff that I do on YouTube, for example, and other people do. For some people, there is money involved, there are sponsors involved, and this is always something you should keep in mind. Like with these vendor-run group buys, I'm saying, like, on the one hand, we're getting a lot of group buys and we're getting more keycaps than ever before. On the other hand, it is something that should always be taken with a grain of salt. Always be a bit more cautious and always consider the circumstances under which statements are made, and always question the motives of people who are in the freebie business, doing stuff for freebies. Don't underestimate how much some people appreciate getting free stuff sent in. Like for me personally, I'm really trying my best only to fanboy the stuff that I personally believe in. I've been involved with some companies, but never as a keyboard tester or reviewer or presenter, but more as a kind of consultant or something like that. You remember the GMK C70, which I had been co-developing. But I was simply giving my feedback there and some input and some testing feedback. This is happening to everyone in this hobby, and it is gonna affect what people tell you and how people view certain things. And yeah, it's something I have a very critical opinion of, and especially taking in free stuff that you get sent is something that shouldn't be underestimated. The way that it changes people's appreciation of something. If when I buy something for 150, 200 euros, I feel like I have the expectation that I can demand something of it. Like, I demand that it is 150 euros worth of hardware that I am getting now, and I'm getting in there with a very strong personal expectation that this is going to be worth it. While as when you get sent something worth 150 euros, you just got free 150 euros. These 150 euros don't count towards your expectations, but they count towards your, let's say, gratitude for having gotten this. This is, I think this is happening everywhere on the internet. You can see it on Amazon with these reviews. Tons of people are some people put it in the disclaimer. Some people obviously forgot to put it in the disclaimer, and I think we are going to see a lot more regulation in that area, especially on the social media stuff, where people have to make it more obvious when stuff like that happens. And I think for the time being, just be cautious, just take things with a grain of salt, and that's very important. I mean, there are obviously, like, I really don't want to name any channels from the community in any aspect here, in neither good nor bad, but looking at other channels like other big channels on YouTube, for example, that are heavily into sponsored, like not really sponsored, but free products for review, that are still very objective and very in like show a lot of integrity, If you look, for example, at the classic EEV blog, I mean, this dude, he's just a I mean, he's a cornerstone of the electronics community on the internet, and he's highly respected, and he does get free stuff sent in for review, but he's being he is giving me good vibes about the stuff that he reviews, and yeah, I think this is just an example of how stuff can be well done, while on the other hand, especially these like really high exposure, these really high exposure YouTube channels that are like just doing general hardware reviews. Oh wow, like they have bent over so deep, like I don't think they can even get up anymore. Like it feels like they have just converted into doing non-stop advertisements. They don't give me anything. Like I feel like I'm voluntarily switching in to watch a 20-minute ad, which even has ads in it, and then ends with a personal message that was sponsored by yet another company. So yeah, that's how far things can go. It's like really there are no obvious cases of that kind of stuff going on in the core mechanical community. It is just something that is generally I've generally like gotten an awareness from on all kinds of social media. There is a strong commercialization going on, and I'm very critical of that. I think it affects people more than they can admit themselves. The companies that exploit this are highly professionals, like the people that make these that do these sponsorings. These are like big agencies. There's an incredible amount of money behind this. The effectiveness of this kind of advertising and product placement is invaluable. You have no idea how effective it is to get your kind of stuff on one of these shows, because these people doing these shows are so credible. They have so much they have so much credibility. They have so much authenticity, and they are often like giving it away for just a couple of pennies or just a couple of freebies. Yeah, I think this is something. It's the Wild West. The rules have to develop. We all have to get used to it. 10 years from now, it's going to be super normal stuff. There's going to be a couple of regulations. We're all going to be used to this. But currently, I think this is still something that is heavily being exploited from all sides. And I just want to raise a bit of awareness here. Awareness. My English is getting worse and worse since I've stopped being around native speakers. Okay, yeah. Well, we kind of cranked 1 hour now, and this is far longer than I ever thought this was gonna go. But I just love hearing myself talk. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm such a douche. You can quote me on that. Like I totally agree. It must be super hard having to cope with me. I couldn't do it. Thanks very much for watching, everyone. It's been a pleasure getting all this kind of stuff off my chest, because I've always kind of felt like I've got to do a build stream and then kind of build like to get this on video. And then again, I've always been kind of it would be such a shame to just bury this in just one random build stream. So I'm trying to make the build streams more build relevant, and if I've got stuff like that I want to talk about, I will just do another ramble video. And if you're in for this kind of monologue shit, then you know where you can get it. So thanks very much for watching, and yeah, take care. always stay sharp, dudes, and dudettes. And yeah, don't let people fool you. Don't believe everything you hear. Don't believe people. Rule of thumb always applies, especially when I say something. Bye bye.